Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the 9th annual Laurentian Bank Institutional Investor Conference Series. My name is Nauman Satti. I'm the Diversified Industries Analyst here at Laurentian Bank. With me is Jordan Simon, who will be helping me in the background to moderate this session. Before we start, just some housekeeping items. Please ensure that your microphones are on mute and your camera is turned off during the presentation. Please ensure that your name appears on screen so we can properly address any questions you may have. Please hold your question and answer sessions for the end. However, if there are some questions, feel free to write them in the chat section as well. Jordan will be able to pick those questions and we can ask them to our presenters as well. Starting with our session today, the first session is by Exro Technologies. Exro, for those of you who don't know, Exro is listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange. It's an upcoming clean technology company which essentially produces or manufactures efficient electric motors that are going to be used in EVs. It's a product that has a wide variety of application in different industries, and in one way it also improves the life of batteries as well. And to present Exro Technologies, we're joined by Sue Ozdemir. She is the Executive Chief Officer at Exro Technologies. She has 9 years of accomplishment in General Electric. She was there as acting Chief Commercial Officer. She was CEO of GE's Small Industrials Motor Division, overseeing the division's North American and international markets, ultimately really building a division into a 160 million enterprise. So she's well versed in that industry, and now she's leading Exro Technologies. With us, we also have John Meekison, who is the CFO at Exro and has over 12 years of experience with public and private markets and has a long-standing career as a CFO. Prior to that, he was an investment banker and has over 15 years of experience raising equity capital. Thank you, John. Thank you, Sue, for taking out time and joining us. Welcome to our conference. And maybe to kick off this presentation, there's a lot that's happening in Exro, like you guys are an upcoming firm. It is really still an early stage. You've put your product out there with multiple OEM partners. Some of the audience members may not be aware of your product since you've recently come into the domain of public markets. So if you could briefly explain what your product is and how it is being deployed in the automotive sector.
Sure, thank you. So we are a power electronics company, and what we really do is make a different type of control for any kind of mobility application, from a passenger vehicle to a two-wheeler to a bus. And so our controls allowed real-time control, almost like an electronic gearbox of a motor in a mobility application, and in a battery, we go to the cell level of control. So we're all about controlling things through the electronics.
Okay, that's good to know. And just in terms of your, you're going after this electric vehicle market, that's where your focus is. Just trying to get a better sense of what is it that your smart motor, like what sort of advantages it has over the traditional ones? Is it really the efficiency? Is it the cost, or is it weight, or is it all of those that would eventually make some of these EV manufacturers prefer your product over others?
Yeah, great question. So I think it's driven by the customer. So I think it's a combination of those things as we look to tier one automotive that are doing passenger vehicle, very high volume, it's cost. So that ability to drive down the complexity of the powertrain, reduce the motors, reduce down the electronics themselves, have one inverter instead of two. Our Humvee, which we launched in January, was really our kind of showing of how we can reduce the complexity of the system. Everybody else with that type of weight of vehicle is using two motors, possibly two drives, and we got 4 times the torque with only one motor and one drive. So I think when we think to tier one, it's about cost. When we think about commercial vehicles, it's about your total cost of ownership and return, and a little bit more gain in range, or a little bit more performance, or being able to do speed at torque makes a big difference on that TCO. So it comes into that. And then we've got the lifestyle with the micro mobility and being able to kind of get a little bit more power, a little bit more performance. It's a little bit more niche of a market, motorcycles and power sport type equipment.
Okay, that's great. And the conversation that you're having with some of these OEM partners, or when you reach out to some new OEMs, what is it that they really want? Is their focus right now on the cost side as well, or they are more focused on really having a better product that's more efficient?
Yeah, I think it's like every product. They want both. They want that better price, but they want that better performance because it's starting to be a really competitive space. So there's a lot of vehicles now coming out. It feels like every week you're seeing a new type of electric vehicle being launched by either emerging startups or the incumbents. So I think the space is so much more competitive. So that ability to differentiate themselves from their competitors is still really driving that desire for the better performance. But the reality is, when we talk about vehicles outside of commercial vehicles, you're also looking at sticker prices that are above and beyond still what most families can afford at 150, 160. Some of the new vehicles are going at close to $200,000. So I think we have a long way to go before we see complete adoption, and components like ours, what's inside these vehicles, is what's going to drive down cost while still giving us the performance we want.
Okay, that's great. And just to confirm, when we talk about the applicability of your product or motor, it's for all EVs, such as battery, fuel cells, even hybrids. It's not just limited to battery EVs, right?
Correct. We've worked exclusively with BEV right now, just because of balancing the demand that's coming in with what we want to do, but we're agnostic to the propulsion type.
Okay, that's great. And when you think of this product, how customizable this product is it something that you customize to the needs of the OEMs, or is it eventually something that would be like an off-the-shelf product that it could have a wide range where any would come in and sort of just pick it? You don't have to customize it.
Yeah, so for sure, we're working towards having a customized product that can go off the shelf. We're well on track for that. Our low voltage product is almost there. There's always going to be some level of customization, especially as you get into the higher volume. So passenger vehicles, for example, like our partnership with Linamar, you're always customizing. There's always something that differentiates them from their competitor that you're customizing. So that's kind of one of the big benefits. One of the main reasons I joined Exro was that ability to scale, go custom, go standard, e-axle or T-drive, truck or bike. It's really customer driven.
Okay, but at this stage, you are more focused on what the OEMs want, and that's going to be the next step where you sort of make it like an off-the-shelf product.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. And I know that you have had a third-party verification of the coil switching technology within the motor. Most of the investors, they cannot really independently verify the technology itself. So can you speak to some of the partnerships that you have? I know you just pointed out about the Linamar partnership, or if you could provide some of the details or how investors could really get some sort of confidence about the technology itself and the effectiveness of it.
Right. So, we have partners from, the likes of Zero Motorcycle on our two-wheel or micro-mobility low voltage. We have a partner in Europe that's a component supplier for automotive equipment that we've integrated the product, our 100-volt product, and it's going through its on-road validation. We see a lot of demand on the commercial trucking side and our high voltage product, which is 400, 800. We have partners with Vicinity Bus, which has the new Lightning electric bus, and C Electric with their C-Drive products, which we're doing, the likes of a UPS truck, an F59 truck, and a Mack LR garbage truck. So we see a lot of demand there. We have a few more customers under NDA there that we hope to take out, which have some, purchase orders for the first pilots. And so I think there is where we're going to really start to see a lot of demand, because it's an area where we far exceed the largest performance in the market today with the incumbent Dana TM4. And then we'll continue working with the low voltage. In the low voltage, we have to find different motors, so it takes us longer. Each project that we go into, we're really evaluating now the return on investment as we get into each of those projects, because there's a lot of work as we go each motor. We have to put it back on our dynos. We have to test each one. On the high voltage side, we already have motor partners, so we can scale very quickly. So the same product that we're sending to Vicinity is the same core product that we're sending to C and a number of other customers.
Okay. And just how have historically, like some of these partnerships that you have, how did they come about? Is it that you guys sort of make a product, or you make this prototype motors and then you take it to them? And then like, I'm just trying to get a better sense of what's the life cycle of these partnerships. What's the first step and where you eventually think you will end up with these partnerships. And if I understand correctly, some of these partnerships are different as well. Like the one you have with Linamar is more about co-product development.
Yes. So again, you need to separate those two, and it's actually a really important separation for us. So when we look at a tier one automotive, we're really targeting a large OE like a Ford or a GM or one of the bigger high volume series production manufacturers. Those projects take on average of 24 plus months. We were in due diligence with Linamar for probably pretty close to 8 or 9 months before they accepted that we would be in the project. We're about 7 or 8 months into the project right now. We're relatively on time. There's been some normal delays from both sides, but we're going to deliver in the second quarter. So that's a normal automotive, whoever they are, tier one, any kind of large OEM. You're going to see about a 2-year time. When we're talking about commercial trucking, the time right like now, because we've been in development, is about 18 months. But as we get each partner, we go faster. So we have partners that we're delivering prototypes to that have only been with us for 3 or 4 months now, because we're able to scale a little quicker. And as we get to the end of 2022, we'll have probably 3 core products that we'll be able to just pretty quickly. I call it probably about a 3-month cycle from when they first work with us to when they deliver. But if it's a development, it's usually around 18 months.
Oh, okay. And generally, is there a preference for you? Because I'm assuming there are limited resources. So how you are making sure that those resources are effectively and efficiently utilized? Because the market for your product is pretty big, right? So how you're thinking about that?
Yeah, we're thinking about it all the time. And it's definitely a big point of conversation for myself and my leadership team over the past few weeks. I think right now, the high voltage drives in particular, we see a huge return on investment. We see, a system that's, just short of $20,000 per system versus $1,000. So we can return a lot more for our shareholders in that segment. So we right now we're still working with all of the partners the same, but I think we'll be narrowing our focus in the coming months, and we'll be sharing that with shareholders. It will be customer driven as we start to convert in the commercialization process and start to see POs coming in where customers are now saying, hey, this is how much I want. That's about balancing our supply chain as well. As we start to lock in working capital, our facility starts to be produced. We want to make sure that our capital is being used for partners that are ready to go to market with their products. So I think a lot of it will be customer driven as we start to see POs come in.
Okay, that's good to know where the focus is going. And maybe this one, John, you would want to take it in terms of the partnerships that are being announced, Linamar as well. Can you share details on the financial side of these partnerships? Like, would you be manufacturing them in-house, or is it like, how would that sort of look like?
Yeah, I'll take a little bit of that and then defer to Sue to add a bit of color. I think it really depends on the level of volume. And so our manufacturing facility in Calgary is really designed for low volume production, up to about 100,000 units per annum. Some of our partners like Linamar obviously would be looking at much larger volumes. And so I think the thought pattern right now is that we would do our own manufacturing for sort of the low volume customers. But in the case of a large customer like a Linamar, you're looking at more like a sort of a technology transfer, licensing out type of arrangement. We haven't determined any of the commercial terms around that as yet, as we're still sort of in middle of the project and program. But that's how we sort of see it going from a qualitative basis.
Yeah, and greatly put, John. So yeah. I think that when you think to automotive, Nauman, what you've got to remember is that as you're building up that facility, it's years and years before you get it ready. We've had our facility under construction for pretty close to a year now. We've got about another 7 months to go. Should be ready by the end of the year to get all the quality standards that you need to be able to provide a product to a Ford or a GM or a Volkswagen through a tier one is a lot of work. Our facility will be world-class. It will be one of a kind, actually, in North America, with a lot of the automation process that we've used. And what it's really about is having a very highly reliable quality product. So like John said, our goal was never to be a mass series manufacturer. So there'll be a lot of knowledge transfer, but it allows us to ingrain ourselves and do prototypes and first volume, get product out on the road. And the facility, you asked a few minutes ago about where the customers are coming from. The facility has actually brought us a lot of customer requests because they know, think about the world right now with supply chain. So they know that we're going to be able to supply. We have available slots. We have a team that has done this for 15 plus years of their career. That's very rare in Canada to find people that have built inverters for the automotive industry is very, very rare. We recruited them from the UK. And so I think that's going to prove to be something very big, and then essentially gets us into what we all want, which is licensing agreements and high volume and knowledge transfer and maybe JVs to build product.
That's great color. And just one more partnership that I thought, I'll talk about that one, which is the C Electric partnership that you had. It's an electric truck manufacturer out of the West Coast. I'm just wondering what stage is that of the partnership in which, and sort of when we can expect to have some sort of production contracts. I know you had a letter out yesterday and there was some mention of it that you're looking forward to some production contracts. So any color or flavor on that?
Right. So we haven't announced where those production contracts will come from, but I will talk about C Electric and say that, when we first started working with C Electric, Tony and his team, it was really about having that mentality to be an early adopter. They were one of the first trucks out to market. They have some of the longest running electric trucks, and they've just closed on one of the largest deals for electric vehicle conversions in the US. So we really knew that when we partnered with them, we'd have a mindset that was willing to go through the races with us. It's not linear taking product to market. So, there's ups and downs and delays, and they've been really, really great for that. But in the end, what we're really excited about is because we do have a small shareholder participation with them, we've worked very closely with them, that we're going to be able to participate in some of these projects. Their latest deal is 10,000 electric buses over a 5-year period. They have another project for 1,000. And so we're working hard with the C Electric and the team to ingrain ourselves into that supply chain. It's business. So, they've got drives that they're already buying from an incumbent that we've got to fit into their supply chain. And then we've got to get our product in, be reliable, and be able to produce. But we're pretty excited about being able to participate in their wins. And we're really, pleased with the progress that C Electric has made and the value they're bringing to the industry right now.
Okay, that's very good. And just so you have all these partnerships, and let's say most of them are being at the test stage, and I think the next stage would be manufacturing. And let's say most of them come together and ask for it. How prepared are you guys in terms of capacity? Can you quickly ramp it up, or how you're thinking about it? Is it going to be third-party manufacturers that you're going to use, or if any color that how quickly you can address this market if you get those orders?
So we are still on track for being able to be in production for the second half of this year, kind of, middle of third quarter through the fourth quarter. We do use a contract manufacturing program right now, which we'll continue to use. Our facility will technically be open and running, but we're not 100% sure that we'll be all the way into production by the end of this year. Just again, we're balancing, finishing our quality programs and getting everything up and running. So we'll continue to use our contract manufacturers. That said, we have a lot of capacity, and we have more than enough capacity to supply the pipeline that we currently have and welcome in new customers. We've planned well for that. So our facility will be able to do 100,000 drives per shift. So if we wanted to, if we saw demand, we could expand shifts and we could open up to 300,000 units if we really needed to. Right now, all of our forecasting is based around one shift and 100,000 units a year.
Okay. And just talking about expansion, on the production side, you said, you're pretty comfortable, but you've opened up an office in Arizona. And I feel that Arizona is sort of trying to become this EV hub. Was it that the reason that you guys went to Arizona? Like, are you getting any sort of incentives to be there? And if once everything is set up, will you be Buy America sort of regulation friendly, or is that something you're still working on?
Yeah, we're still working through the Buy America portion. We will be Buy America friendly for sure. We've got lots of consultants that we've engaged to make sure that we'll be ready for that. If we need to open up another facility here for that, it would be what we call a micro facility, where we're utilizing our headquarter in Calgary to be able to do that. Right now, we have a good contract manufacturing program set up that will allow us to supply Buy America. Our drives are not actually too bad for that, because they're a component and there's a lot of exemptions within the drive. The motor side is what we have to think about. And our motor partners have production here in the US. So we're good there. And yes, Mesa was definitely about being closer to the electric vehicle ecosystem, being closer to talent that had experience in the automotive world. Now we've all seen, we've done a great job of recruiting, but like everybody else, the world is changing in that way too. So recruitment takes a lot more effort and a lot more thought, and people are looking for a lot more. So having the facility and having something that people can come and see and view and call home was really important to us. So currently in Arizona, what we have is it's office space for our employees, and then we're building out a new dyno test bed, and that is under construction right now. Our dyno has arrived here in Calgary. We're working through the final permitting and commissioning, and so we're hoping that we'll have that dyno commissioned by the end of this month, early part of March, which would allow us to double our testing capacity and get product to the market quicker.
In terms of your product that you have, efficient motors, it can be used in multiple industries. Essentially, wherever there is motor, there is some sort of application of this product. Why did you choose to focus on automotive sector? Is it purely because the economics work in that industry, or is it something that you can eventually venture out in some of the other end markets as well?
For sure, we can venture out into other markets. There's some great markets in material handling and heavy mining industry. We focused on it initially before it was even becoming really big, because we got a voice of customer. We attended a lot of trade shows as we were socializing our product. And what we found was that the main thing about our product is that you need to have that demand for torque and speed at the same time. So you want something that wants a lot of production. You want to go fast with that. And so you need that varying torque speed combination. And so, everything mobility, everything with wheels on it on land is a great application for us. So we decided that as a startup, essentially as an emerging growth, when I came in, we'd kind of dip our toes and we'd find out where we'd get the most demand. Now we're starting to focus in. For sure, you'll see us in the future go into other industries. That won't be our focus for the first half of this year, possibly even the second half, as again, we find that the high voltage drives in particular are just seeing so much demand for us, and the return will be great for the shareholders there.
Okay, so right now your focus is there because primarily it's the demand side that has sort of taken you there.
Yes. And we still have a great demand. For listeners, we still have a great demand on our low voltage, and we can produce both. And there's not a either or for us, but we definitely see this. Like I said, you have a system that's close to $20,000 versus under $1,000. So there's an economics of scale that we're considering to just best utilize what we do over the next few months.
Okay, that's okay. And now just switching that gears a little bit more on how you sort of try to think about this expansion, since you guys are a pre-revenue company and it's going to be a while before you generate a substantial amount of revenue. I know the production comes in later this year, but obviously the market opportunity is very large. But how are you managing the expansion efforts in terms of financially? You just did a 20 million raise. I think you have a cash of about 31 million or around that mark. So do you think that's sort of enough of financing that you have, or you have a shelf perspective of 200 million? Is that something you're going to use if the demand sort of comes quickly? How are you thinking about the financial aspect of this expansion?
Right. I mean, I'll start and then I will pass to John if John wants to add on a little bit. So from a CapEx perspective, most of the CapEx for both the facilities and our equipment had already been taken care of. or is taken care of in the first quarter of this year from our existing funds. I'm sure there'll be a little bit, building a facility is much like taking the product. It's not very linear for us. So there's lots of little hiccups that come along the way with, different air conditioning or different things that we need as we go. But for the most part, we think that part's covered. So we feel really good about our working capital right now. We're not thinking about raising right now. We're thinking about executing and bringing in POs. And so I think for the next 90 days, that will be our focus. But I'll lean to John.
Yeah, no, thanks, Nauman. And I think the reality is that what we wanted to do was, given that the sector is somewhat volatile and fluid and shifting, we felt that it was very important to be flexible and that we had ability to access capital resources as the market presented itself. So as more customers came to us and we needed to expand and evaluate that opportunity, then we had that backstop with the shelf prospectus. Right now, as Sue said, we feel very, very comfortable with our current cash position. We're good for at least 12 months. And we're just going to focus right now on execution, delivering milestones, and then we'll sort of see what happens over the course of the year.
Okay, that's very, I understand in the initial stage, since you have a new office, new facility, that's going to be CapEx intensive, but on a more normalized basis, the product itself in terms of the R&D that would require on a regular basis to improve it. So what sort of CapEx investors should expect on a sort of normalized basis? Is that something very expensive to manufacture, or is it going to be a pretty light?
No, there's not a lot of CapEx once we get through this year. Definitely this year, even in the second part, as you take the product to market, as the product matures, there's different design stages. So as you take that, there's a lot of first pilots, first prototypes that essentially become almost the equivalent of waste as you run them off your line, making sure that you have the best quality product. Again, we're going into an automotive industry where you're moving people. So when you're moving people, that means that you've got to be highly reliable. You have really rigorous quality standards. And so there's a lot in that initial stage. Once you're running, it's pretty smooth. And, right now we're building out our bill of materials. We put a lot of work. We have a fantastic supply chain team that's been putting a lot of work into that. So we feel good. As the product starts to continue to move down its development, we'll have more details to share.
Yeah, I think I'll add a little bit to that. I think as we look forward, obviously one of the issues that we're going to be thinking about is really less the capital expenditure side. As Sue said, I think that's well in hand in terms of where our facilities are. But it'll be more along the lines of working capital and making sure that we have the sufficient capital in place so that we can manage receivables, payables, and inventory management. I think in particular if we do sort of motor inverter packages together, because motors obviously add a considerable amount of cost in terms of inventory. So we just need to think about how we manage that and sort of what capital in place and whether we put in lines of credit and other sort of at that point working capital financial facilities to help accommodate that.
That's good. So we've covered that part, and just we've spoken about the motor product, but you guys are coming up with this second product, which is a battery control system. What can you tell about this product, and how did this idea sort of came to fruition? Like, what's the thought process? Why this product?
Right. So the battery control is such a fantastic product that we really haven't exposed a lot as we wait and focus on our coil driver. But how the thought process there was really twofold. From an engineering perspective, our coil driver is all about controlling a motor to the core, controlling it to the coil of a motor. That's the core of a motor. Where on the battery, it's being able to control it to the cell. So as we thought about how do we control different pieces that play a part in equipment, we wanted to control the cell of a battery. So that was kind of, from an engineering perspective, the first thought. But from a kind of, as we look at the world perspective, what we really felt from a what's going to come in the future. Our team is always thinking about what's the next problem that we want to be able to solve? What's going to be 5 years down? How do we make sure that we're sustainable, that we're surviving, for 25 plus years to come? And so when you look at that, we really felt that, the batteries of the vehicles, we're going to have two issues with everything going electric. Eventually, we will have supply chain issues around batteries, much worse than what we see today. And, anything you read now, you can see that we have a lot of raw natural resources, but we also won't be able to supply the demand for lithium within vehicles and energy storage. And then also we have this flip side where in the energy storage market, most of the people focus on either residential, like a Tesla Powerwall, or large utility grid, and there's a lot of companies in that space. But when we think about industrial commercial, it's a pretty niche market. There's not a lot of players, and there really isn't a competitive stationary energy storage market in there. So we really wanted to utilize the product to be able to fill this niche market. Again, it's a nice high revenue product. It's got a lot less regulation than what we see when we talk about automotive and mobility. And it's the same team, same facility, same production facility to build the boards. So for us, it was a very natural progression of the resource and equipment that we're making. Again, the battery control system, although we're focused on a stationary energy storage unit today, is also able to go first life into a vehicle, and that ability to, it's called vehicle to everything. So we'll be able to have a vehicle that can utilize the coil driver and our battery control system and essentially charge a hospital during a blackout. And so, you'd use multiple cars, not one car to charge a hospital. So, there's a lot there. I think the bottom line for us was we wanted to repurpose. We wanted to play, the Exro ecosystem was about the circular economy. So with our new electric vehicle system division in Detroit, we can design, integrate, supply the powertrain key components, and repurpose the key component of a battery back into a stationary energy storage. So we play the entire cycle. That really increases your value as you talk to customers, especially the larger customers as we build our brand.
Okay, no, that's very informative. And before I ask this question, just for the audience, if someone wants to ask a question, they can use the raise a hand feature, or they could also write in the chat section, and Jordan will help us to take that question. Jordan, feel free if there is something you can hop in, ask those questions. And since you've spoken about this second product, is there anything else that we can expect? Like, how does it work? Is your engineering, there's like a specific new product team that's working on different ideas, or how does that work? Can we see more products coming in down the line?
For sure, you'll see more products coming down the line. We do have one squad, is what we call them. So one engineering team that's dedicated to our battery control system. It's been the same team since I've joined, shortly after I joined Exro, I recruited in the team that's there. So Tung and the team are responsible for our BCS. And I think what you can look for next there is us submitting the product to UL. It's already a working proof of concept that we announced last year. So the pilot products are under manufacturing right now, and we're waiting on batteries to come in for it, and then we're going to put that product to UL. We also have a small pilot that we're working with with our partner EVTS that makes a three-wheel off-road, like a commercial three-wheel truck, and that one was about demonstrating. There's not a lot of second life batteries that are coming to market yet that are lithium ion. We are agnostic to chemistry, but our pilots and all of our research has been done on lithium ion phosphate. So we wanted to make sure that we just stayed with that from how we use our capital, how we do everything. So with the EVTS product, what we're really demonstrating is that it not only works for first life batteries, gray batteries, and makes a competitive product for a niche market, but we can repurpose a battery out of a vehicle and then put it into a revenue-making energy storage unit. And that pilot will come out kind of in the second quarter, beginning of third quarter. Again, it's being developed right now in our Calgary facility. So those are the two kind of key highlights. UL certification will be submitted in the second quarter. So, probably beginning of fourth quarter, we should have approval. We can commercialize once it's submitted. So we could be seeing orders on our BCS early part of 2023.
Okay, that's good to hear that there's a lot of activity that's going on. And lastly, before we take some audience questions, if there are any, there's a lot of recent noise around Exro infringing on e-propelled ICE IP rights, actually. I think it's relating to the coil switching technology that goes into your battery. So I know you have made some announcements sort of clarifying that as well, but now it's been a few weeks, just trying to understand if your lawyers are sort of giving you any sense around how long this issue can stretch out. Any color would be appreciated, really.
Right. So I'm going to be very careful right now, of course, but what I'll say is our lawyers are in a discovery phase right now. So there's some conversations happening. We maintain the position that we had a few weeks ago when it first happened, that we will vigorously defend our technology, and we do not feel like we are infringing. We have lots of great reasons for thinking that. And to date, we still have not been served, but our lawyers are in that discovery phase and talking and communicating. So we'll, as soon as something becomes material, as soon as we have something to share, we'll let you know. For now, just so that our shareholders are clear, it's all in the hands of the lawyers. So it's not taking up any of our leadership team's time. We're not focused on it. We have no delays from our commercial customers. All our projects are progressing as normal. You know, just yesterday we signed another NDA with a large company. We're not having a problem with people wanting to start to do business with us. Again, it's one of those scenarios where when you're working with a customer and you have an NDA, you can share a lot more. And so you can talk to them. They can talk to our patent lawyers directly. They can get the confidence that we need to be able to continue business versus what we can do in a public market and how we communicate that. So our position hasn't changed. We'll continue to let our lawyers do their thing. And, you know, it's something, only great tech has this happen. Only something of value gets challenged. So this is a scar that I'm very proud to defend for the company and to make sure that we're built for our future.
Okay, that's great to hear. And Jordan, please let us know if there are any questions. Otherwise, I'll just ask one last one.
No questions as of right now.
Okay, so I'll just ask one last one. So I know that the focus is towards execution and manufacturing, or sort of winning those contracts. But apart from that, what's taking most of your time? So where's the focus area apart from, I would say the first would be execution and production. What's the second one?
Commercial relationships, just a lot of customers first coming to talk to us, first trying to see, you know, showing off the demos. So a lot of commercial conversations, I think, would be the second part. I think that's really balanced by we really have grown as a team. You know, when I started with the company, we had less than 10 employees. We're over 80 employees today. I really put a lot of time into spending time with our team, making sure that the employees are engaged and supported, and the environment that we have created for them is what they want. So I think that's another big piece of what we're doing.
Okay, that's great to know. So yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time. I think it was really informative. I think many of the investors would have a much more idea of what you guys are doing and how different products are coming, and how well sort of in terms of financial aspect, how you've done the recent raise and you're comfortable around that. So I really appreciate for both of you taking out and sharing your story with our investors. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. And it's great having you, and it was great having that conversation.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank
you very much, Nauman and Laurentian team.
Thank you. And just for our audience, we have our next session with New Flyer Group, NFI Group, which is going to start at 9:50. So I will be back at 9:50 with New Flyer. Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.